Tuesday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good day. Browns with a day off, at least the players, as they get ready to host the Ravens, who look to be on a roll. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson from the 33rd team. Talk about the future of Deshaun Watson with the Browns moving forward after that Achilles injury injures him and ends this year's season.
The Browns have Deshaun Watson insured for quite a lot of that money. They're going to get some kind of cap relief because of this next year. So in a way, it's a positive thing for them in that it forces them to make the move that people have been clamoring for anyway. They get cap relief next year because of the insurance. We get to actually see what this thing looks like with a different quarterback. There's a lot of positives to this, even though obviously Deshaun Watson is now Achillesless.
Yeah, Jason from Over the Cap talking about the insurance, the reimbursement would depend on time. He's unable to play. Per source, the Browns only have up to $13.9 million of the 2024 compensation insured, and then almost his entire 2025 salary is insured. So if injury prevented him from playing next year, that would get you cap relief again in the following year. Also, friend Greg Rosenthal theorized, is this the last snap we've ever seen from Deshaun Watson in the NFL? Because I think at this point, is it Browns or bust? Like, if the Browns don't want Deshaun Watson, is any other team going out of their way to bring him in? If they brought him in, it would probably be on the cheap because the Browns are on the hook for all the money. And if someone else wanted to bring Watson in, it would be a Russell Wilson-like, hey, the Browns are paying all the money, we're going to take a chance on Watson.
With that, let's welcome in Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Mary Kay, the injury, unfortunate for Deshaun Watson without question. A lot of speculation going there. But Kevin Stefanski said they're not there yet relative to trying to figure out what that looks like moving forward. And we have to believe him at his word.
That's true. He does not know yet what the future is going to hold at quarterback. What we do know is Deshaun is going to undergo this surgery and he will be out 9 to 12 months, something like that. So even if you thought that he was your quarterback of the future, you really cannot count on him to start the season. You have to look for contingency plans. So I believe that they will look for the best quarterback or quarterbacks that they can possibly find in the draft in April, in free agency, and in the trade market. And they could even start looking for someone in the trade market now and get someone on board before the November 5th deadline. So a lot going on here, but it is conceivable that Deshaun Watson is done as the starting quarterback of the Browns.
And again, the interesting thing is, and I didn't realize it, and I've seen it from several sources who do the salary cap, the insured contract, you get some form of that back against the cap, which will help because the cap numbers are pretty significant.
Yes, they will get some cap relief, and that will help them. Obviously, as you saw there, it's not a ton of money for 2025, and then they'll have to figure out how that is calculated for the season beyond that. But at least it's something, and they need any help that they can get right now to help dig out from underneath that $46 million a year salary. And who knows, maybe if he comes back healthy, they can find someone who would be willing to take some of that off their hands. But chances are that that's a long shot.
So the question becomes, and I'm curious as to your thought, who do you think the Browns turn the offense over to now? Is it Jameis Winston? Is it Dorian Thompson-Robinson?
Well, Dorian Thompson-Robinson right now has a finger injury. And as of yesterday, he was going to get a second opinion with a hand specialist. So we don't know really the results of that yet. But even if he is reasonably healthy for this week, I would sit him down and let Jameis Winston start this game for a number of reasons. First of all, I think that DTR, the moment right now is just a little bit too big for him. And throwing him out there against the Ravens' vaunted defense, that could hurt his confidence. I don't think I would do that. You're going to want to see what you have in DTR in other games this season And you want to make sure that he can go out there and perform and be the best version of himself for that. So I would not put him out there with an injured finger, struggling to grip the ball. Why would you want to do that to a young quarterback who would have enough on his plate in a game like that anyways?
So the Browns did make a move relative to a quarterback. They signed Bailey Zappi off of the Chiefs practice squad, and I know you tweeted that out. So because they signed him off the practice squad, he has to be on the active roster, doesn't he? It's like 3 games or something like that when you sign somebody and poach them like that?
Yes, they have to remain on the active roster for at least 3 games. So he will be here as, perhaps the number 2 quarterback in these 3 games, depending on what's going on with DTR. So it could be Jameis as number 1 and maybe Bailey Zappi as number 2, depending on the health of DTR's finger. So we're still waiting for some word on that. But now they do have a 3rd quarterback in the house.
All right, so Browns lost another game, Bengals, so in the division, first division game. This is from PFF. Why your team won or lost in Week 7 for the Browns? Browns just weren't able to generate any offense on the ground. They gave up the opening kickoff that was returned for a touchdown, so they're playing from behind the entire game. What was your biggest takeaway from that game against the Bengals?
Well, special teams obviously were horrible, but that's not the biggest takeaway. Obviously, the biggest takeaway for me was losing Deshaun Watson and being left with the question mark of where do you go from here at quarterback? And I understand the wisdom in wanting to see Dorian Thompson-Robinson. There are a lot of people that want him to be the quarterback for the rest of the season so the Browns can get an evaluation on him. I just think there's time for that. So that's probably my biggest takeaway, is that the whole quarterback landscape of the Cleveland Browns is now in limbo, in a state of flux, and they have got to get this figured out.
When you look at the running game, Nick Chubb, I think he averaged 2 yards a carry, and there were just guys on top of him, literally, when he was getting the ball. He could take maybe a step and a half, 2 steps, and then there's a defender. What have you observed with this run game?
Well, the Browns' offensive line has struggled all season long, and I thought that really hurt Deshaun's case, and it might hurt whoever else tries to step in there and function at quarterback as well. But certainly it hasn't helped the run game, and they struggled with that. There have been so many problems with penalties, with missed assignments and things like that. So I think that's one issue to look at. They really, really miss Bill Callahan on that offensive line, I think. And but that was Nick's first game back. It was great to see him get in the end zone. And, maybe he knocked a little bit of the rust off and he'll fare better going forward. But they will face much better defenses than the Bengals for sure.
All right, as you might imagine, a lot of voicemails. So let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason for the first time today.
Hi, this is Rico. I've called this very show and been a full-on supporter of Watson, Stefanski, and Barry. My, how things quickly change. The reason I can no longer support them is because of this colossal failure of a season. This team had too much talent to be 1-6. All of the core players are getting older. It feels like another season wasted. Stefanski now has 3 losing seasons out of 5. I know the season is not done, but come on, let's be realistic. They're not going to go on some magical run. I know we made the playoffs last year, but that's not good enough anymore. We want to win and win consistently. I have a strong sense that Haslam will fire someone, either be Barry or Stefanski, when the season ends, whether right or wrong. Thanks.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails, Mary Kay. I have no idea how that will land. I do know you've had a GM and a head coach that have worked together and have made the playoffs, but it's not working right now.
It's not, and it really is hard to believe that you would fire the 2-time AP NFL Coach of the Year just 1 year out from winning his last one of those, and also just in the same year that you extend Andrew Barry and Kevin Stefanski. But we never really know what Jimmy Haslam is going to want to do. We don't really know what he is capable of, in part because Jimmy is a very impatient man. And this year is a year that he believed that his football team was going to be making the playoffs and going deeper into the playoffs, maybe challenging for a Super Bowl. So he cannot be happy right now. They need support for their new stadium. We can see how upset and angry Browns fans are. This is just not the product that the Haslams wanted to put out there. And we'll have to see what happens in terms of who takes the fall for this, if anyone.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, more of your calls on the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey guys, I've come up with a bunch of reasons why we stink. Offensive line, offensive play calling, discipline, no leadership, no accountability, head coach, no talent, defensive lapses, special teams, ownership, GM, no talent, all the above, mainly coaching, but all the above. Boy, do we stink.
Sunshine and roses from one of our Rochester callers. Mary Kay, again, it hasn't been one area. It's not like you can, if it was, boy, get the offensive line fixed, they'd probably have fixed it by now.
Yeah, it's certainly not just one area that's going wrong with this football team right now. And that's why it's so hard to pin it down and figure it out. And, that's why I also felt that Deshaun Watson wasn't anywhere near as bad as everyone made him out to be this year. He did not have the supporting cast around him. There were just so many injuries on the offensive line, so many penalties, so many missed assignments. David Njoku wasn't out there most of the time. Amari Cooper, in my opinion, wasn't playing the way that he needed to play for the Cleveland Browns, wasn't playing smart enough, wasn't playing hard enough for them. And it's just not what anyone needed. And now they have to go back to the drawing board in a number of areas. It's really unfortunate. And who knows when this team will be able to get back to winning and back to the playoffs.
All right, so this from ESPN Power Poll for Week 8. So their rankings. They have the Browns ranked 30th. They list a young riser, wide receiver Cedric Tillman. Tillman did show up against the Bengals. If you're looking for a bright spot, that is one. Not many.
Yeah, I mean, that's something. And it seems like if Jameis is in there, he's really going to be making an effort. And Dorian Thompson-Robinson as well are going to be making the effort to get the ball to Cedric Tillman a lot. I think they're going to try to get the ball to Jamari Thrash. I know they'll try harder to get it to Jerry Jeudy. The one person that I don't know if they're going to try to get the ball to a bunch more is Elijah Moore. He was benched at the beginning of that game. We don't really know what that was all about. He obviously was not happy about that. He was not happy in the locker room during the week. We didn't know what was going on with him, but he's somebody to keep an eye on just in terms of trying to figure out his status right now.
Yeah, you mentioned it. Were you surprised that Jerry Jeudy, I think he didn't get a pass thrown to him until like fourth quarter maybe? It was pretty late with his first target. Were you surprised by that?
Yes, I was surprised by that. There was one earlier in the second quarter, but it was wiped out by a penalty. So one ball at least did go his way, but there should have been more than that. Kevin said that after the game. No, actually, he said that about Jerry Jeudy, that Jerry Jeudy, we are talking about Jerry Jeudy right now. Yeah, Jerry Jeudy had the one target that came to him for the first time in the fourth quarter. And that is just not at all what the Browns expected, needed, wanted out of him. He's supposed to step up and become the new number one in the absence of Amari Cooper, and it did not go that way. And we'll have to see how that goes moving forward. That is certainly not what the Browns want.
The other thing that's been concerning is the kicking game. You know, Dustin Hopkins was fantastic last year. Take a look at what he has been in 2024. He's 69.9% of the field goals, 31st in the league. 77.8 in point after touchdowns. That's 37th because you have had more than a kicker start for each team. 10 of 13 field goals, 7 to 9 point afters. 50-yarders, he's been 50%. He was darn near automatic last year. He's missed a total of 5 kicks in 15 games. Last year, he's missed 5 kicks in 7 games. The other thing is, Mary Kay, he's missing these kicks at critical points. You know, the point afters are killing them. They have in a couple of games.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. It's not what the Browns need. That game could have changed if he had made the 49-yard field goal and if he had made the extra point after Nick Chubb's touchdown. That really can change the complexion of a football game. And that did not help matters at all. They have to figure out what's going on. I think Kevin said it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that they don't have Charlie Hewlett as the long snapper right now. They have Rex Sunahara filling in for Charlie, but you never really know. They're not going to throw Rex under the bus, but maybe there is something there. So we'll have to see if it has anything to do with that or if it's just that Dustin needs to kick his way out of a little bit of a slump.
All right, before we go to break, let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, it's just a comment about the debacle of the Browns. In my opinion, they released the wrong person. You have maybe a double threat with the wide receivers they had, or maybe even more, and they couldn't figure out how to shore up the offensive line long enough to give the quarterback a chance to hit any receiver. So the answer is get rid of your arguably number one receiver, if not number two, if he's fading or whatever. But Stefanski obviously should not be calling offensive calls. It's been said for years. I don't know what it would take other than removing him to get someone in there. I don't care if it's a collaborative effort with the coaches. He's calling the game during the game and he fools nobody. Anyway, just my opinion on the situation of things. Once again, tearing apart a team potentially to rebuild for another 5 years. Have a good day.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Mary Kay, Amari Cooper, I think we kind of alluded to it. He really appeared to not want to be here. So I think they granted him his wish when they traded him. And who knows if did he want more guaranteed money with the contract that he didn't get? Did he want to be traded? Were his feelings hurt? Amari Cooper didn't really want to be here, and I think that's one of the reasons they traded him.
Yeah, and we don't have to look very far to figure out that he didn't want to be here. He posted on X or on Instagram, LOL, I wouldn't have minded at all when the report surfaced that they tried to trade him to the 49ers. So if he's going to say something like that, you know where his mind is at. And then I think his body followed. I really do. I don't know that he intentionally tanked anything, but he certainly didn't have his head and his heart in there. He told us point blank that he did not practice hard enough in the first 2 weeks of the season. So why not go ahead and believe him if he's going to tell you that? He said he didn't practice at that game-like intensity the first couple of weeks, and he had to kind of turn it back on after that when he had like 11 yards and 16 yards in those first 2 games. He ran some wrong routes. He dropped a touchdown pass in each of those games. So I really think that there is something to the notion that he just was not in it. Whether he, again, intentionally did anything to not play well, I doubt that. I think it would be hard to go out there and dog it a little bit. But he certainly didn't have his heart in it. And I think that showed up on the football field. I think it hurt everybody involved, including Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, and relative to the play calling, you can point at everything on the offense. Right now, I don't think there's enough plays that they can execute well enough that it matters who's calling the plays.
Probably not. Probably not right now. They need to go back to doing the things that they know that they can do well. They need to do more 2 tight ends, more jumbo stuff, more running the football. Nick shook off the rust a little bit in that game, and he probably can be more effective going forward. And, Jerome Ford might be back soon, so they'll have even more of a 1-2 punch there. But certainly right now, They're just trying to survive and get through the rest of the season and try to figure things out. But they have a long way to go. I mean, this is a long, long season still to go with 10 games left. And they really can't talk anymore about trying to get on track and trying to get it turned around because that ship has sailed. They're not making the playoffs, okay? It's a long way to go knowing that you are going nowhere at the end of the rainbow.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. When we return, Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
You know what I think? I don't think you have the stones.
Oh, I've got the stones. I think you're the one that don't have the stones.
Let's settle this once and for all.
Amble up to the 4 new Ohio Lottery scratch-offs with all kinds of stones. Gemstones, diamond, emerald, sapphire, and ruby 10s. $10 each, 10 times multipliers. 2 fast spots for quick draw wins of up to $100 and a $500,000 grand prize. Which one will you get when you order them up? Well, that's just the luck of the draw.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
How you doing? This is Jesse in Akron. I'm just listening, and every week we're saying the same thing. But my question I was asking myself, and I'm going to ask you guys the same question. I look at other teams across the league. They have new coordinators come in with the exact same players, sprinkle a new player here and there, but they haven't fallen off the tracks like we have. So what is really the problem?
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Mary Kay, it's in my mind, and it's because they completely changed the scheme. And not only did you change the coordinator, there's the offensive line coach, and all those position groups have to fit together seamlessly. And right now, it is not.
No, it absolutely is not fitting together to the point where they are having to go back to doing things the way that they did them before. In some cases, the spread stuff really did not work all that well. They can keep some of those things around and they can try some of the new concepts, but for the most part, it's been an abject failure. And it's unfortunate. I remember looking out in training camp and thinking, they're not out here practicing this together at all. And they weren't. They only had one practice where they were all out there together with all the skill players and with Deshaun. So that didn't help matters. There were a lot of injuries. None of the offensive linemen, the tackles weren't practicing for much of training camp and preseason. So they just weren't ready to implement this new offense. And it's just been a disaster for everyone involved.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what do you do moving forward. That will be the key point. This is kind of interesting. Robert Mays tweets this out, and I'm not sure I agree with it. Amid all the contract talk, the lost draft capital is the forgotten part of the Watson deal. The Browns are dead last in the amount of rookie contracts on their roster per over the cap. Martin Emerson is really the only major contributor that's on a rookie post deal in 2024. Again, the problem is Emerson's not playing real well. Dwan Jones isn't playing real well. So those are kind of the two that you hung your hat on.
Yeah, those are the two that you hung your hat on to sort of make up for the fact that you were without those 3 first-round picks. So now when you move forward, you're right. He's right about that. In addition to not having Deshaun Watson at quarterback probably anymore and spending all that money, you don't have those 3 first-round picks who could be cornerstones of your franchise by now. If that was, a tackle or another edge rusher or a wide receiver. So you have lost that, and they're going to have to make up for that in any way that they possibly can. And they're going to have to really hope that their personnel department shows its mettle over the next 1 or 2 years in absolutely trying to make up for this absolute failure with the Deshaun Watson experiment.
All right, this one's from CBS Sports. It's kind of interesting. I'm curious about your opinion of this. CBS Sports, top players at each position who could be dealt by the trade deadline this year. At cornerback, they say J.C. Horn, Greg Newsome, and Jonathan Jones. Your thoughts. Do you think that's something the Browns potentially look at?
Well, it's possible. I don't think that there are very many untouchables on this football team right now. I think Miles is kind of an untouchable, although even in the aftermath of Deshaun going down, I don't even know if there's anybody that's untouchable. But they heading into that game, there were no thoughts of trading Miles Garrett, Denzel Ward. They were going to try to keep the nucleus of the team together and move forward and just see what they could salvage from all of this. Now I'm not so sure how that's all going to go down. But I wouldn't be surprised if you see some bigger name players moved over the next couple of weeks before the November 5th trade deadline. Why not take some phone calls on a Greg Newsome? Why not take some phone calls on a Zadarius Smith, which I heard they have been doing? So I think they will move some players, and then there, of course, there's a chance that they could acquire a player or two as they try to, again, dig out from underneath the rubble of this mess.
If they're acquiring them, I would assume you would expect them to be a little bit younger, guys that have a little bit of a higher upside that you're trying to get. Again, you're probably going to move on from a lot of those defensive linemen in their 30s and try to get younger there. So is that the thought?
Yes, I would think so. Guys that are in on the 1-year contracts and they're not going to be around after this year. If you can get anything for them, why not go ahead and do that? And yeah, they're going to trend younger. They've got a lot of 30-year-old guys on this football team. So yeah, there will be guys that they will move over the next couple of weeks. Maybe even a Zadarius Smith, who, we've heard that maybe the Lions are interested in him or some other teams. So yeah, there will be a few more trades.
All right, so Ravens are up next at home. Lamar Jackson threw 5 touchdown passes last night. Derrick Henry is the NFL leading rusher as we speak, and has had a couple of 150-plus yard games back to back. When you look at that, how concerning are those two guys for the Browns defense the way they're playing?
Oh my goodness. I'll tell you what, the Ravens looked really, really good last night. And just watching Derrick Henry, I was wondering, who is going to be able to tackle him was one of my thoughts. The other thought was, why didn't the Browns think about signing a Derrick Henry? I mean, why not? The minute that Nick Chubb went down last year, I advocated that they try to trade for Jonathan Taylor, which I thought that would have been a wise move for them. And then in the offseason, you could have had Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry, two of the best in the business. And yes, you would have had to pay them some money, but it probably would have been worth it. You didn't have to pay Nick Chubb his full salary this year, so you had a little bit of money to play with there. But they're going to be a load. Lamar looks amazing. And, they've got some guys catching the football for him. Todd Monken is doing a really, really nice job calling it for them. And it's going to be a tough, tough afternoon.
All right, before I let you go, we're going to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason one last time.
At least 2 teams in the league care about their fan base. They're underachieving, so they fire the coach. What are we doing about it? Nothing. All we care about is building a new stadium somewhere. That's all we care about, so our fan base can pay more money to get in and watch this trash they put on the field. That's all we care about, because our owner's wife doesn't think football should be played in the cold. What a joke, guys. When are you going to realize it's time to get rid of this guy, get rid of Barry, start all over? Maybe even have it our owner change and let somebody else buy the team. Maybe then we got some hope. But right now, there is no hope. We're going to go 1-16, and that ain't no doubt about that.
And again, our contingent from Rochester, who's just unhappy with everything. Relative to the stadium, I can't blame them for wanting this. Here's the thing. The Haslams have spent lots of money on the roster and the franchise. If they get more money, they're going to spend more money on the franchise, on the roster. So yeah, building the dome is fine. Relative to firing coaches, we've done that. We've done that since 1999. When are we going to realize that is not the way that you get sustained success?
Let's see what Jimmy has in mind after this season. Since they just extended Andrew and they extended Kevin, I don't think he's going to blow it up. I don't think he would fire the 2-time AP NFL Coach of the Year. I don't think he would do it. But sometimes these losing seasons take on a life of its own. We didn't think they were going to blow up the whole offensive staff after last season either. So not really sure where they're going to go with this. I think we all just have to really stay tuned and see how it plays out.
Yeah, and relative to the stadium, Mary Kay, why wouldn't an owner want an elite facility for his franchise? I don't understand why people are so upset about that. I just don't get that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that or if it's the fact that it's going to be in Brook Park. There are a lot of people that want to see the Cleveland Browns stay in downtown Cleveland. So I do understand that part of it, and I do wish that there were some kind of way that they could have figured out a solution to keep the Cleveland Browns in downtown Cleveland and also have a retractable roof or a dome or whatever they could have done. And I am going to be sad. I just drove past the stadium again today, and it just looks so beautiful out there on the lakefront on this beautiful day. And I do think that there is a little bit of nostalgia on my part, or some sadness about the fact that it's not going to be there long term. So I do understand that part of it, but I also 100% understand the desire for a shiny new stadium and a dome.
Yeah, and again, I get people wanting the thing to be downtown. It doesn't work. It doubles the price, and they're already going to have enough problems finding the funding to do it in Brook Park and without making it twice as much to keep it downtown. But again, I get it. Mary Kay, as always, thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it very much.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Mary Kay Cabot, make sure you check her out. Really good Browns coverage in the pages of the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. She is the Browns beat reporter for those two outlets. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Fred Greetham from the Orange and Brown Report ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. This one from Tony Rizzo, ESPN Cleveland. Level of confidence that you have in the Browns offensive coaches.
Are you confident Kevin Stefanski could coach Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward or Quinn Ewers?
I am. I'm still confident in Kevin Stefanski's coaching.
Really? He's done a good job this year, you think?
Riz, I think there are a lot of things Stefanski is being forced to do that if he could do it his way, things would be a little bit different.
Well, then how about you do it your way? Step up, stand up to these people. Tell them enough's enough. I'm not playing this guy. I'm not playing.
I agree with you.
Bailey friggin' Zappi? What, is somebody in that building think he's a better choice than Winston? That's what I'm waiting for next. How about you stand up and go, I'm going to start coaching this team my way? Because, Kev, I got news for you, man. As much as they love you and you do what they say, you keep losing, you're not going to be around.
With that, let's welcome in Fred Greetham from the Orange and Brown Report. Fred, the final part of that was if you keep losing, you're not going to be around. And I was very much saying there's no way. And with each week, it's like, well, I don't think there's any way. Do you think with all the losing that's going on that Kevin Stefanski or Andrew Berry might be in jeopardy at the end of this?
I don't, but as you kind of, with an asterisk, things change quickly. I mean, I didn't think Rob Chudzinski would be fired, in his first year. I think Jimmy Haslam has grown a little patience, but they are spending more money than any other team on salaries. They have more players making over $10 million. I'm sure there's some impatience on what am I getting for my money. I do think Kevin Stefanski is calling the shots. I disagree, with that premise there that he's being told to play Deshaun Watson. He's being told to play Dorian Thompson-Robinson or Bailey Zappi or whoever, because they're paying Jameis Winston pretty handsomely to be the backup. I expect him to start this week. Whether DTR is injured or not. That's just me. But yeah, I mean, anything can happen. You know, you don't really see a path now to maybe even be better than 2-7 or 1-8 at the bye. And we know what he did with Hugh Jackson. Now you knew that was a ship that was going down, and Greg Williams stepped in and was 5-3 the rest of the way. It's just, what are they gonna do with this season? If you are done completely with Deshaun Watson, which I feel I'm talking about on the field, I think they probably are. But you don't move on until you know you have a replacement, because he's going to be here as far as financially on the books. You can make him inactive, you can have him be the backup, you can move around. But if you're going to go get a new quarterback, you got to find out if what you have on the roster is going forward, is what you want, or if you're going to go for one of these top quarterbacks in next year's draft. Maybe you play young guys and try to let the season go out, because if you don't finish and get a top 5 pick, you're not going to get the best quarterback in the draft. You probably wouldn't get the best quarterback in the draft unless you're picking first, actually, because if there is one, there's always teams going to go all out to get that first pick. So I don't even know if there's a sure shot guy in there. And if it is Shadur Sanders, do you want Dion to be calling the shots and declaring that he's not coming to Cleveland, or shenanigans like that? So there's decisions. When Stefanski and Barry got the extensions, I pretty much felt like, okay, you got a young group, you got a 42-year-old coach just coming into his own. Andrew Barry, 37-year-old general manager. They can be together, have the stability. Are you going to keep that, or are you going to blow it up and say, let's go back to the drawing board, let's go see if we can find a new coach or a new general manager, or both? And we've been around watching since 99. The instability was rinse, wash, repeat, do it every 2 to 3 years. So I really think that these same guys, everybody thought, was good enough to extend and go forward. So I think they will ride it out a little bit more.
I'm with you. I actually hope they do. We'll see. All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave. It's Bob from Chillicothe. Love the show. Chubb is back. I'm back. I got to watch that game. I got a question. I know Stefanski calls the plays, but who is determining who is getting the ball, who's setting up, who's going to run what route? Amari Cooper running deep routes, that wasn't going to work. I don't know. I think that's part of our problem. That we just got the wrong players getting the ball at specific times. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all the voicemail. Fred, that's relative to scheme, and that we've been told is Ken Dorsey, Kevin Stefanski, and the entire staff. The scheme's not working. And I'm one of the guys that was like, hey, build it around Watson's skill set. It hadn't worked. It's not working. It's awful.
Yeah, you didn't really, even in 7 games, really didn't see what you were trying. To his point, it matters. You can call the plays, but a lot of it depends on who the quarterback is. DTR, when he took over, threw to Cedric Tillman, his high school teammate. Cedric Tillman had 3 catches the whole year. He had nothing until Thompson Robinson was in there, and he threw him 8 passes. I think he had 11 targets. Well, good for that. Jerry Jeudy, who was your de facto number 1, had no targets at all until Jameis Winston comes in with 3 minutes to go in the game, and he threw him the ball 5 times. He dropped one right on the number 3, reminiscent to Amari Cooper. But my point is, the quarterback seems to have his favorites or guys that he looks for, regardless of what the choice route or the play is or whatever. So Kevin Stefanski alluded Monday when we talked to him, what we said there. They built this offense around Deshaun Watson, Jameis Winston, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, maybe a little, but they don't have the same skill set that Watson has. And so he said, when asked, that they're going to have to pivot a little bit and change some things around. This would be a perfect time to go back to what you were doing in the past. You got Nick Chubb back, you got, your running backs, and you got a more conventional quarterback. What you did with Joe Flacco, you had to pivot after you lost some of the guys and readdress your situation. I don't think you just throw up your hands and say, okay, we lost Watson, so we're just going to keep doing what we were doing with him. Here's a fresh start, even if it's a limited amount of plays, kind of what you did at the end of the game or so forth, have packages and even use them both. But yeah, I just think that, you got to address it because you had good moments. The offense, for the most part, wasn't explosive last year, but it was way better than it's been this year. The lowest point total they scored when Deshaun Watson was a quarterback last year was 22, and that was that loss to the Steelers. They haven't scored 20 points yet. They haven't scored 19 points yet. So, that's that's where this is all at. And so I'm hoping to see something different.
All right, before we go to break, Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson from the 33rd team talking about whether it's DTR or Jameis Winston that gives them the best chance winning moving forward.
I don't really see an argument for going with anybody other than Jameis Winston as your quarterback if you're the Browns for, the foreseeable.
I mean, the only argument is that they're trying to draft a quarterback high. And again, there's who the heck knows with this quarterback class if anybody's worth drafting. Sitting there at 1-6. If you're actually trying to win games, though, I would give it a run with Jameis Winston.
Yeah, and at this point, you're not just trying to win games. You're trying to, rescue the morale of the locker room. This thing's in a bad state at this spot.
And, Fred, I couldn't agree more. I don't, and again, I know people want to see what you have in DTR. I just don't think he's ready to be that guy just yet. Maybe he'll get there. I don't think he's there yet.
Well, I agree with that. I wrote after the game, be careful what you wish for. As much as Deshaun Watson was despised in Cleveland, by the fans, the media, it seemed like, all the way around, he played terrible. Kevin Stefanski is watching practice every day with his staff, and they had to feel that he gave them a better chance to win than Jameis Winston or DTR, or he would not have played him, up until last week. And so I still don't buy that he was being ordered to play, Deshaun Watson by the owner. He has a contract. If he gets fired, he gets paid. He's going to do what he thinks is best. And I can't believe, that he did that without thinking they could win games with Watson. Now, all bets are off. I think the same thing. Jameis Winston was a former #1 pick. How many times have you seen guys, that really were good at the beginning, or they were drafted #1 or 2 overall and they kind of flamed out, but then later, they kind of resurrected their career. I think of Rich Gannon. A lot of people wouldn't remember him. He flamed out, but then at the end of his career with the Raiders, he was really good. You see it with Sam Darnold. You see different things like that. It's a different expectation when players mature. They had talent. Even look at Baker Mayfield. Everybody's saying, oh, the Browns made it. He is not the same player he was when he was with the Browns. He matured, and now he's playing a little better. So I think Winston can help you win. If you win a few games, you're going to ruin your chance to be the top pick in the draft. But I don't think that's their mentality. I think if Winston, when I heard a lot, I wanted Joe Flacco. I thought it made sense to bring him back. They decided to not bring him back. I felt Jameis Winston, the more I looked at it, seemed to be a good replacement. He's 30 years old, so he was 9-10 years younger than Flacco, but he could do almost anything that Flacco could do. He's not as mobile, as Watson, but he can still move a little bit. He has the arm, He has the experience. So why not? Why not see what you have? And if you're going to draft another quarterback, maybe he could be your bridge quarterback. Maybe you could catch lightning in the bottle with him. I agree with DTR. I think he's a runner still. He's explosive there, but it's going to get himself killed, doing that. And in the pocket, he just doesn't look comfortable. He's got a strong arm, but he's got to get a little better touch. I mean, he was throwing the ball. It looked like as hard as he could at some of those, and I know they're NFL receivers, but goodness, I don't think they could hang on to the ball because there was no touch. It was just like bullets through him from 10 yards out. So why not go with Winston and maybe have a package like they did last year? Bring in DTR, let him run the run pass option or run or whatever, and ease him back in a little bit. You don't need to turn it over now. If you want to see what you have in him, you got plenty of season left. You can put him in, last 6 games if that's the case, or second half of the season. See what Winston can do, the last couple weeks. It might be, an easy decision because I'm hearing that DTR doesn't have any broken bones in his finger, but he can't grip the ball totally, and that's kind of a problem. So let's see what Winston can do. I mean, you're paying him, I think, $8 million, to come in here this year, and you never know. He could be the next Joe Flacco, and then you have a different outlook on next year, and you could bring him back as the starter, and maybe whether it's continue with DTR developing or see if you could find somebody else. But yeah, I just don't think he's totally ready. And I think it would maybe set him back more to just throw him out there, especially against the Ravens again, like they did last year. So yeah, I kind of go with the Winston. You brought him here for a reason. You felt he was a better option than Joe Flacco. Let's see what he's got.
Fred Greetham, senior analyst from the Orange and Brown Report. Now I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to Go Forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports for CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
All right, guys, so quickly, why have the Browns been so bad since 1990 now? Here we go. Donovan McNabb, Ben Roethlisberger, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and C.J. Stroud if we didn't give up all the draft picks for one player. Get John Dorsey back and get a coach in here. I don't care where you get him from, college or whatever. Get a coach in here who's actually been a head coach and not an offensive coordinator. So we don't have a head coach right now. We have 2 offensive coordinators. Get rid of Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski. Get Dorsey back, pick your own coach, pick a good coach, and let's go.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Fred, I just want to point out, John Dorsey's the guy that didn't draft Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen number 1 overall. That's an incredible draft failure. I mean, Baker Mayfield is playing really well. So all the Baker Mayfield people, I'm admitting he's playing well. You can't sit there and tell me you shouldn't have taken Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson with the number 1 overall pick, because you'd be wrong.
You go back to that time. I went to the combine. I talked to all the perceived top 4. If you remember, Lamar Jackson really wasn't, included. It was Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Josh Rosen, and
Josh Allen.
And, I thought Sam Darnold made the most sense, to me. My biggest drawback with him back then was he looked terrible against the Buckeyes in that bowl game. But then when you looked at, they had Denzel Ward, they had a lot of NFL defensive backs, and they were kind of eating them live. So I said, well, that makes sense. But then I realized Baker Mayfield kind of ate the Buckeyes up when you look back. And yeah, Josh Allen from Wyoming obviously was right there if he was in the consideration. My point is, you or me or the fans, we're not getting paid millions of dollars to evaluate and make those decisions. They are. And as you rightly pointed out, John Dorsey, I think, really did a good job. Most of the stars on this roster right now were here before Andrew Berry. The Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, Joel Bitonio. You could, that escapes me a little bit, as far as, but the point is that he drafted those guys, David Njoku, but he missed on the quarterback. He should have known, even if he didn't want, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. But my point is, it's kind of a crapshoot. And so, before he got here, the guys who were drafting in 2017, I don't think many would argue about drafting Myles Garrett, but Patrick Mahomes was sitting there and you had the number 1 pick in the draft,
Yeah.
And you passed Deshaun Watson at 12 after Mahomes was taken at 10. And so these are decisions. And so everybody wants to look to the draft, and I understand that, but a lot of the names he mentioned, to some point, teams kind of get lucky, because you can't tell me that I wanted Tom Brady all along in the 6th round, or, Aaron Rodgers 24th in that round. You look at these guys, there's very few times when the clear-cut number 1 quarterback is there and there's no question. It wasn't like that when they had the number 1 pick.
Yep.
At least at the time. So that's where you end up, back into the lottery. And that's why if Winston starts this week, he'll be the 38th different starting quarterback since the Browns return. We're back on that carousel again.
Yep.
You used 3 quarterbacks in that game, and now you brought in Bailey Zappi. So here you go again.
All right. This is a Brad Stainbrook tweet from the Orange and Brown Report. Ravens have contacted the Browns about Zadarius Smith, as have the Lions and Commanders about the availability of Zadarius Smith. So, Fred, my question is, would it surprise you to see Zadarius Smith? Who are some other guys that you think could end up being on the move? As the season's lost. I mean, let's not kid anybody.
Yeah, season's lost. You have to win 8. You have to go 8-2 to have a winning record, and that's not even going to get you in the playoffs. So that's not going to happen. I don't know. They really have to. I know Isaiah McGuire has really come on since Alex Wright got hurt, and he's almost filled that role. He's graded very high. Mike Hall, it's only been 2 games, but he's graded very well. They have to identify. I don't think they're going to rebuild and blow this up. There's good players on this roster. You just have to identify who wants to be here and who you can pivot and win next year with a fresh group revamping. Zadarius Smith, I think they signed him to a 2-year deal. I like the move. I think he was re-energized a little bit. He came here to go to the playoffs or have a chance for a Super Bowl. Of course, everybody's looking for him. I think teams are looking to pick the carcass of the Browns and see if they're unloading. Guys like Zadarius Smith or even Myles Garrett, would you unload him? But I think realistically, like a Wyatt Teller could be a guy they could move on from. Then you look, other guys, I don't know. I mean, you got veterans like Shelby Harris, Maurice Hurst, but I don't think you can not live without them. But I would think Cooper was probably the most tradable commodity. I think Zadarius Smith would make sense. If somebody, if the Browns think they can replace him with what they have next year and keep on winning. He got a sack last week. I think he's maybe re-energized a little bit. Hearing some trade rumors that maybe he can go to a team, but I would not trade him to the Ravens. I don't care what they offer you. I think, you know, I was surprised you traded Cooper to the Bills, but anything can happen. But I see those type of talks occurring. I'm sure that these teams are kicking the tires and seeing who the Browns might part with for not much.
Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Now I'm going to take one more time out of the side of the break. Back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Well, after 7 weeks, we're 1-6, and here's our two-time coach of the year. Comes out and says the same thing again. Our goal is just to win. Guys have to step up. Here we go again. Not him. He don't have to step up. The guys have to step up. Ain't it his job to make people step up? Why don't he step down and quit? I keep saying this, and I will keep saying it. Take your buddy Andrew Berry with you, too, and let us start all over again, and maybe we can get something turned around. This idiot has got to go. He has got to go.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Fred, there was an old radio saying that was fire the DJs and change the format. We've done that for long enough. I've seen the coaching carousel and the GM carousel. I'm not ready to do that yet. But if somebody tells me, yeah, they're going to do that, this season has been bad enough, I'd listen to it.
Well, I've been around these guys a little bit more, and I like them both, Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski. They don't really help you much in the media. It's not their job to give us a lot of information, but Stefanski, by his peers, there's 32 coaches in the NFL. His peers voted him coach of the year 2 out of 4 times. It doesn't mean that he has lost all his wisdom in coaching. I think he's now in his 5th year. I get it, the play calling. He's bland. He's even keel when things are good. He's almost better in crisis mode than he is when things are going good. But I don't really know if the curtain was pulled back, how this all came down with Deshaun Watson. It just doesn't. I never felt along. This just seemed like a quarterback that he would work well with. He has been good with working with the Case Keenums, the Jacoby Brissetts, the Kirk Cousins, Joe Flacco, and it just that's why I say let's see what he can do with Jameis Winston. A mobile quarterback after 2 years, either he decided it wasn't working or the owners decided it wasn't working and they made him get an offensive coordinator that had those skill sets, or he chose to do that. And it still just wasn't working no matter what they did with Deshaun Watson. So I'm not ready to give up on it, but I realize there's always a fall guy. Unless you have somebody sure shot ready to replace him and Andrew Berry, I don't think you move. I do the same thing with players. You don't get rid of somebody just to get rid of them if you don't have a replacement. Now, some people would say Mike Vrabel. He's there on the staff. Jim Schwartz. If you are convinced that that move would turn things around not only for this year but for the future, you make that move. But some of those guys have both been fired as head coaches before as well. So, I always get this, that it's not for long in the NFL with coaches, but they didn't lose everything overnight, what they know about the game. You got to just have the right situation. And I don't know what happened this year, whether that's on the GM or on the players or on the coaches.
All right, before I let you go, is this a tweak or a total rebuild we're looking at moving forward?
I think it's more of a pivot. I would say in between a tweak and, not a rebuild. You've got good players on this team. I mean, they might be underachieving, but there's some young players you can build with. I mean, you got Grant Delpit, you got JOK, you still got Denzel Ward in his prime, you got Emerson, you got Newsome, especially on defense. I think that if Alex Wright comes back with the trajectory he was going, Isaiah McGuire, Mike Hall, your defense is really still playing well. I mean, they're only giving up 20 points a game. The offense is the reason they're 1-6. You score 22 points, I think you won 4 more games, and that's not a big ask to score 22 points. So it's even half those, even at 3-4 right now, everybody wouldn't be looking at a lost season. You'd still feel you can turn things around. So it's on offense. You got to decide on that offensive line how many you need to replace, and do you have the quarterback? You got to find the quarterback. That's why they went through this purgatory, thinking that they had that settled for 10 years, and all it did was turn everything upside down.
Fred Greetham, Senior Analyst for the Orange and Brown Report, as always. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Fred.
All right, Dave. Have a great day.
You too. Fred Greetham. Make sure you check him out. Always really good stuff. He is the Senior Analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.